One of the most difficult, if not the most difficult conversation to have in the world is about money. Whether it's with your partner, whether it's with your boss, whether it's with your family, even yourself. We all struggle with thinking about money, talking about money, monitoring our money, growing our money. It's one of those things that can end up being one of the greatest struggles of our life. And it's sad because so much of our life revolves around it. I know that this episode will transform your relationship with money. How many of you are struggling to shift from surviving to thriving? Maybe some of you have tried budgeting, investing, or saving, but still feel like your financial growth is stuck. Do you feel like you're doing everything right with money, yet real financial freedom still feels out of reach? Maybe self-doubt is keeping you from reaching the financial success you know you're capable of. I can't wait for you to listen to this episode because I want you to transform your relationship with money and wealth.
The #1 health and wellness podcast.
Jay Shetty.
Jay Shetty.
The one, the only Jay Shetty.
First up is Scott Galloway, entrepreneur, professor, and best-selling author. He talks about the pursuit of wealth versus riches. Have you ever felt the pressure that you need to own a home? Scott busts this myth, and I can't wait for you to hear his answer. What does being rich even look like? Scott talks about what does it mean to have a passive income that can exceed your expenses. Here's the truth. Everyone worries about financial stability, even high-paid professionals. No matter your age, if you're someone wanting a life of true wealth, listen to this.
There is a certain pride of ownership. I think it's situational. Where you are in life, how much money you have, the city you're in. But buying a home is meant to be an enhancement to your life. It's not a suicide pact. And it may not be right for everybody.
Yeah, I think what it gave people as a symbol was something to pursue, right? We started talking about you go to college, you get a degree, you get a job, get married, you get a house, you have kids. Like it became one of those tentpole things. Right. And so now when you take it out, it's almost like what should people be pursuing, right? If you got married, you got a good job, you're working, you're with your partner, it's almost like people think they have to pursue. It's almost like the assumption that you have to have kids. It's the same assumption of, oh, well, we have to buy a house.
Yeah.
So what should people pursue instead financially when it comes to financial security?
The goal is what I'll call wealth. The goal isn't to be rich. Rich is the things you see. Wealth is what you don't see. And your pursuit should be wealth or economic security. And this is what wealth is. Wealth is having passive income that's greater than your burn. 2 examples. I have a buddy who runs M&A for a bulge bracket investment bank, makes between $3 and $10 million a year, depending upon the market. Because it's all current income, he pays 50% taxes between his ex-wife, his home in the Hamptons, and his master of the universe lifestyle that he feels he deserves. He hasn't saved a lot of money, and he spends most of it. And I know that firsthand, he has a lot of sleepless nights wondering what happens if the music stops. He is not wealthy. My father, who is 94, between his pension from the Royal Navy, Social Security, and he owns 6 washer-dryer machines in trailer parks where he goes and collects the money with his walker. He makes $52,000 a year. He spends $48,000. So he is saving money despite the fact that he's not working. So his passive income is greater than his burn. He is wealthy. So you want to put yourself on a track to being wealthy. You want to say, realistically, I can control how much I spend. I've been coaching this couple living in San Jose, and they're in their late 50s. I talk a lot about young people, and they say, Scott, we're in our late 50s. What do we do? How much money do you have? What's your house worth? Da-da-da. And by the time they're 65, they're not going to have enough passive income to pay for their lifestyle. I said, well, let's lean into our strengths here. Why are you in San Jose? And they said, well, we've always lived here. I'm like, well, okay, your kids are gone. And you just mentioned that you go to Costa Rica twice a year. Why wouldn't you try and cut your burn 40% and move to Costa Rica and take that economic pressure away and sell your house here? I think your kids would love to come visit you in Costa Rica. So the question is, put yourself on a path using basic math and what you really think you're going to need in terms of passive income, such that at some point, ideally, it's by the time you're 40. It's usually not, but it needs to be by the time you're 65 or 70, because that that release of economic anxiety frees you up to focus on what is really important, and that is deep and meaningful relationships. So the reason why I am so much happier over the last 10 years than I was kind of the first 45 years of my life is that economic stress was always there for me. I was raised by a single immigrant mother who lived and died a secretary. I felt like there was a ghost following us around telling us we weren't worthy because we didn't have money. Between college, student loans, the dot bomb crash and the great financial recession, I just never had enough money to have passive income such that I was done. Most people, and a lot of people never get there. I got lucky. I sold my last company about 10 years ago for a lot of money. Now, unless I really screw up again, which I've done a couple times, I can focus on my relationships. The resting blood pressure of a child in a low-income home is higher than the resting systolic blood pressure of a kid in a middle or upper-income home. I think the majority of divorces are not a function of infidelity or a lack of shared values. It's those things, one or more of those things might happen, and then the incendiary on it is financial stress. 2/3 plus of divorce filings are from women. And we don't like to say this because we like to assume all men are predators and all women are virtuous. But when a man is under financial stress, the reality is he becomes less attractive as a mate. And that can lead to real stress in the relationship. So what you want to pursue, if you're not pursuing a home, you want to put yourself on a path. You want to get alignment with a partner. You want to track your spending and put yourself on a path to some level of economic security, of wealth, by, say, the time you're 65. And if you're young and you're killing it, instead of buying a bigger flat screen or a bigger TV or maybe a bigger house, well, what if I started saving 10, 15, 20, 30% of my salary and I got wealth by the time I'm 40 or 45? Because to be in America, young and healthy, and have passive income that's greater than your burn, you're just going to have a wonderful life. So it's not acquiring anything. It's getting to a point of economic security or wealth, and that's a function of two things. How much money you make such that you can save. Key to wealth is not how much you make, it's how much you save. And also the thing you can control is your burn. I have a friend who ran a hedge fund. It closed down. He makes good money, but not great money. Living in Tribeca with 3 kids, needed $1 million a year to live that life. Moved to Portugal, lives an amazing life with a beautiful home, great food, childcare, great education on $400,000 a year. I mean, these are problems of privilege, but that has taken the world of stress off his shoulders. He now needs to make a very good living, not an outrageous living. So, but surround yourself with smart people who can help you make these decisions. But wealth is passive income that's greater than your burn.
When you bring up the word money, most of us kind of go blank-faced. We want to reach for a stress ball. You can just sense that it's uncomfortable to talk about it because we're almost reminded of all the bills stacking up and all of our expenses. And we spent too much on TikTok Shop this week. And, the reality hits and we kind of don't want to talk about it, don't bring it up. How do we get out of that stressful wiring? And you talked about it even there with your background. Like, I grew up in a family where we didn't have the healthiest relationship with money because we never had enough, or we always had just enough, and that was good enough. And that was always like, you're just looking at your bank balance sitting at 0 all the time. Like, how do we rewire our relationship with money? Because most of us have a stressful relationship with money.
Well, when you think about how they help people who are depressed, it's a combination of talk therapy and, if needed, some sort of pharmaceutical intervention. I think mental illness or mental unwellness around money, I think we absolutely need to, one, have more financial literacy. I think we should have a class called Adulting in your senior year of high school that says, my kid can do derivatives, but I just figured out he doesn't understand the interest rate on his credit card. So young people need a certain level of financial literacy. Also, I encourage them to talk about money with their friends. It's especially hard for men. Women are disproportionately evaluated based on their aesthetics. Men are disproportionately evaluated based on their economic vitality. So for a guy to say, hey, I lost a shit ton of money in the market. Should I sell it? Do I get a tax write-off? That connotes weakness. They're worried that they're less attractive. There's actually something very British that you might relate to, and that is British people The best grade I understand in Britain that everyone wants is you get really high marks, but really low effort scores. You're supposed to be accidentally rich. I'm such a baller and I'm so great at what I do that I just accidentally slipped and fell on a ton of money. No, it's work. You got to think about it. You got to talk about it. So I encourage people to talk to their friends. And if you're comfortable, this is how much money I'm making. This is how much I'm saving. This is, taxation is really important. Well, what if I moved to Florida? How much money would I save? What if I buy a house now? I heard there's something called 1031 exchange where I can roll into my next property tax-free. Talk about money. Get really good at it. Roger Federer, do you think he never talks about tennis? Talks about it all the goddamn time. Do you want to be great at money? Most people say, yeah, I want to be great at money. Is anybody great at anything? If I wanted to be an amazing evolutionary anthropologist, would I never talk about it? Would I never bring it up in conversation? Would I never want to talk to other people about evolutionary anthropology? If you want to be good at money, put down the facade and start talking to people about their investments, how much money they make, what they do with their money, how they save money, what they do to try and limit their spending. I talk about stoicism. See if you can find a practice where you get reward or a dopa hit from exercise or relationships. Gamify saving money. My junior year at UCLA, I was in a fraternity with mostly wealthy Jewish kids from the Valley, and there were 5 or 6 of us out of 120 guys, and everybody knew who we were. We didn't have any money. We were always late on our house bills. Everyone knew, oh, those are the poor kids, right? And one summer, we all lived in the same apartment building, and we gamified saving money. And we had a whiteboard, and we literally made a game out of it. In the summer of 1985, I survived for 12 weeks on $78 a week, including rent. Because if I didn't save $3,000 by the fall, I wasn't going back for my senior year in college because I didn't have wealthy parents. And if you can gamify saving money with a partner, especially a romantic partner that you can be totally transparent with, God, that's powerful. We're building something. We're going to save a ton of money. Can we save $5,000 or $7,000 this year together? And it's going to be $8,000 next year. And then it's going to be $9,000. And with compounding in 5 or 6 years, which will go really fast, we have 60, 80, 100 grand. And having kids is, I think, the most rewarding thing it has been for me. I didn't plan to have kids, but it was having kids with someone else and raising what feel like pretty good citizens. But a close second was building economic security with someone else. We had total alignment, right? We're going to save. We were transparent around our expenses. We were generous with each other. Oh, no, you should do that. There's a very unhealthy dynamic sometimes in relationships. And this is sexist, but I found it to be true, where the dude uses money to control his spouse, and the spouse turns it into a game of how much money she can spend without him knowing. And fortunately, that's getting flipped a little bit, or it's equalizing because women are doing so well. Women under the age of 30 are making more money in urban centers, more single women own homes. But there's still, in my generation, this very weird dynamic between the sexes and money. But going back to your original question, talk about it, understand it. If you want to be good at it, you got to get literate at it. And you want to bring it up with your friends, and you're going to start learning. I spend 4 hours a week probably talking to other people about my economic well-being, what tax loopholes there are, where I should be investing. I have a lot of real estate. When interest rates come down, at what point do interest rates get low enough where I should be pulling a second out and putting it in the market, knowing if I have a 10-year mortgage over 10 years, the market's usually up about 7 to 9% a year. Does that make sense, right? Think about it all the time. You're the average of your 5 friends. You've seen that study, body mass, politics, sports teams. But what's more interesting is one of those 5 people will be more economically secure, much more economically secure than the other 4, despite not making a lot more money. You want to know those behaviors and those characteristics, and you want to model that person. But this is something we all need to be more open about. It doesn't make you less of a man. You're not supposed to have a lot of money when you're young. Everybody screws up. I've been broke twice. In my 40s, I was broke. And that was really, I was too ashamed to admit that to anybody else. It was like, well, you're supposed to be smart and great at what you do, right? So I think being a little bit more vulnerable, being open about it, and getting tips and, kind of rules of the road from other people. Talk about it.
Clip 2 is from Codie Sanchez, founder, CEO, New York Times bestselling author, and champion of financial freedom. She talks about how to translate your skills into wealth. You might have felt that you have skills, you have talents, you have abilities, but you don't know how to monetize them. Are you someone who's deciding whether college is right for you? Or maybe you went to college and got a degree in something you no longer want to pursue. Degrees don't always guarantee financial success. Practical, transferable skills can matter more. Companies increasingly value practical skills over traditional degrees, and Codie talks about how to turn those into real world value so that you're not chasing your passions that may not pay off. I can't wait for you to listen to this clip to recognize how to turn your skills into profit. And so I'd meet a lot of young people who sadly have spent so much money on their degree, are really smart academically, but then that skill doesn't translate into knowing how to make their company more money, knowing how to lead people really well, knowing how to build functions, systems, processes. And therefore it's like, well, wait a minute, I just studied all these years, but it doesn't translate.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, for a long time, we employed people from the top universities and financial firms. We would go out and we would hand select them because that would be an indicator of their grit, perseverance, and potentially their intellect, their IQ. Now, by and large, you're starting to see a lot of the top institutions bypass that. You know, Google doesn't mandate that you have a college degree if you're going into an engineering degree, actually. And I think that should be really liberating for us. It's basically breaking down this barrier that's a 6-figure barrier that allowed for the few, the elites, to stair step over everybody else. And now it's actually saying, how bad you want it? And don't tell me what you learned. Show me what you can do, or even better, show me what you did. And so I think the resume of the future is actually, if somebody came to you, Jay, and they were like, I just graduated from Wharton. I am very smart. You know, I also did my undergraduate degree at Harvard. I now want to come work for you. You'd be like, what do you know how to do? Do you know how to market? Do you know how to grow a beverage company? Do you know how to increase our investment return? Oh, you kind of like theoretically have looked about how to do that in a case study? That's probably less interesting to you than somebody that goes, you know what? I was part of the beverage team at Erewhon and Whole Foods, and I figured out sort of across the country how they buy different pieces of inventory.
Yeah, you got my attention already.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. And maybe because I want to help you grow this individual business, which I know you care about because I see it on your socials, I put together this little spreadsheet for you. Here's the things they care about. Could I come work for you for free for 3 or 6 months? And if that works out, could we do something better and bigger? The problem that people usually have on the internet when I throw out the word work for free is young people are like, remember that part where you told us that we were broke and we don't have any money? So I'm not trying to dismiss that at all, but I do think we have to be honest about the fact that when we're young, you're going to have to work harder than you think, longer than you think, doing stuff you don't like with people you probably don't like until eventually you get the right to do something really interesting. But like you don't die in your first job from it being really hard and challenging. You die from the absolute monotony and the low-level tasks you have to do for basically pennies on the dollar.
Yeah. Definitely. Absolutely. I fully agree. Let's say someone's 30 years old.
Yeah.
Or 30 to 35. They worked 10, 15 years after graduating. They've been at the same company. Maybe they've moved once.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to someone like this yesterday. She's been at this one company for 6 years. It's a great company, great on her resume, but she's like, I don't really want to be here. I don't think this is where I see my future. But I'm so scared of quitting. I don't know how to invest. I probably didn't save that much anyway. Now I feel bad about it.
Ooh.
I'm probably feeling a bit of shame and guilt that I didn't save that much over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
What would I do, Codie?
Well, one, I would say these days you do not have to have money to make money, which is incredibly powerful. So when I think about it, if I'm 30 and I am at a company like that, what would I do today? Well, I would actually probably sit down and figure out what am I actually skilled at that somebody else would pay me for. Once you know what somebody else would pay you for, which is really just like, do people ask for your opinion on this? Could you actually get jobs in this space? If it was me, because I'm kind of unemployable, like you don't want me to work for you. I got my own ideas. I want to do things this way. If she's like that, then what you want to do is you want to try to partner with somebody where you can be the solution to their problem. And because you understand what I call deal making, which is really the language of money, you can negotiate an ability for you to own part of a thing in order for you to have one of 3 outcomes. If she can figure out if she can help help a business grow its revenue, make more money, if she can help a business cut its costs, or if she can help decrease the pain of a business owner, you can negotiate your way into a business and have equity in it and upside. And I wish somebody had taught me that earlier, because this is what consultants do. This is what private equity firms do. This is what some of the largest institutions in the world do. I call it expertise to equity. But if I was her, I'd say, don't go find another job. And if you don't have a brilliant idea that you're like, I would die for the want of creating this thing in the world. If you have that, please go do it. But if you're like, I don't have that, I just want to make money and I want to feel respected and I want to feel like my skills fit somewhere and I'm able to have an outsized income. If that's you, then I think you should try to value your skill set. Then you should try to negotiate for an upside deal with somebody. And you should try your hand at this game called ownership, which is where you say, hey, small business, I know how to market. Can I help you market at the side while I'm working on this company? And because I help you grow your revenue by 50%, could I keep 10% of the 50% I grow? Do you think a small business owner would say yes to that? Of course they would, because there's no downside. And I think more often than not, we think that the only risk you can take in making money in business is putting your own cash down. That's a risk. Or starting a business, aka dedicating your life to something. And the last part I'll get a little statistic on us is 90% of startups fail inside any rolling 10-year period. We know that statistic. Most startups make $0 for the first 3 years. After that, the average entrepreneur makes about $46,000 a year, which is great, but not when you've been making zero for 3 years. And then on top of that, we've got this nation of people who have all these bills to pay, and they are betting on hopes and dreams as opposed to realities. And so my commentary is, can you figure out how to value your skills so you can negotiate a little bit more upside for that day where you can't work anymore?
Clip number 3 is from one of my best friends, Lewis Howes, and he talks about the mindset of abundance. He talks about how a scarcity mindset can limit financial growth, while an abundance mindset opens doors to wealth. If you've grown up with limited resources, it may have shaped how you view money. He talks about the importance of practicing gratitude with money, no matter how little or how much you have. And we get to talking about both of us rewiring our relationship with money so that you can actually attract more abundance. If me and you went back to a place in our life where we really didn't have money,
Yes.
and you think about someone who's in that position, who's listening to us right now, and in their head they're thinking, but how do I become abundant when I don't have? Well, like my natural thing is like, I'm just struggling to pay my next bill. And me and you have both been in those situations.
Yes.
I remember when I was growing up, I grew up in a house where we had just enough. Like that was the language my parents used.
Yes.
We have just enough. And my parents would often argue about money. I remember I wasn't allowed to buy cool shoes and stuff. I'd have like the knockoff cheapest brand from whatever, which was, I actually didn't have an issue with that. I didn't have an issue with any of it because we had food and that was my normality. But it's really interesting because the amount of times growing up, I started working when I was 14. And I think that gave me a really interesting sense of how hard it was to make money. Because I started working at 14, I used to get paid £2 per street that I delivered newspapers on.
Wow.
So imagine there's 100 houses. It's going to take me like...
Not per house.
No.
Per street.
Per street.
Oh my gosh.
So I did 5 streets. And so I'd get £10
Wow.
at the end of the week if I did 5 streets. And each street would take me at least an hour,
Wow.
maybe, I don't know, something like that. And so I'd walk around, I'd pull this thing and I'd deliver it. And I got an understanding of how hard it was to make money. But then that became a story for me, going to your point.
Making money is hard.
Making money is hard. And that there's only a certain amount of money you're allowed to make at this level. Like you're a 14-year-old.
Yes.
Then I worked in retail. I stacked shelves at a grocery store. I worked at a store called Morrison's, which is like working at Walmart. And there I remember I got paid like £5 an hour. And then you get like time and a half if you work the weekends and the evenings. All of this to say that I probably spent my whole life only seeing zero in my bank account because everything that would come in would pay for my phone bill, my car insurance that I paid for, whatever it was that I was taking care of. So I wasn't relying on my parents, apart from I lived in their home, obviously. But I always felt like money came in, money went out. And my story around money was people who have money are doing something bad. So I lived in a home. Whenever we went to a friend's home and they had a nice home, my family would always say, oh yeah, but they do dodgy stuff to make money.
Yeah.
All the language around money was people with money are doing bad stuff. So in my head, it was like, oh, if you have money, then you must be doing shady stuff because we don't have money and we're not doing any shady
Right.
stuff.
You must be hurting people to make money.
Correct.
Right,
In
yeah.
some way, exploiting.
Taking advantage of.
Yeah, taking
Yeah, yeah.
advantage, whatever. So everything you're saying is so true because then when I got to a point in my life where I was just trying to do good and I had something like 150, 200 million views on content,
And you had no money.
I was 4 months away from being broke.
I met you at this
and
time.
I met you around this time.
I met you this time, yes.
And it was really interesting to me because that was the time that I was actually doing this work, which is why this book's so powerful, because I realized that I couldn't, even with 150, 200 million views, it wasn't that made money because my story and my personality style was anxious. I felt like it was wrong to make money. Like that's actually what it was. I felt like making money was bad. And so until I got to that,
Did you believe you were worthy of making more money?
I believed I was worthy, but I believed that you had to be bad to make money.
Wow. So you
Right.
didn't want to be bad. You didn't want to have a lot of money and associate, I have a lot of money and I'm bad.
Correct.
I'm bad and wrong and I'm hurting others in order to help
Correct.
myself.
Correct. Because good people are poor,
Wow.
right? Like to be a good person of good character means to not have money.
Wow.
And,
And that was based on a belief system that you developed.
over time
Yes.
that I didn't even know. Like if you would have told me about this 8 years ago, I'd have been like, I don't know, which is why I think these reflections are so important. So when you're in that place, taking your story as well, taking my story, how do we start to rewrite that story now that we're aware?
Well, it's so powerful that you said that. And I remember this vividly because I met you on Halloween 2017, right?
Yeah, 8 years ago, yeah.
And I said like, cancel the day. Let's just hang out all day.
Yeah, you had a book coming out that
I had a
day.
book that came out that day
Yeah.
on Halloween,
Yeah.
which is called The Mask of Masculinity. Anyways, how do we rewire our brain around money to create more abundance
When you have nothing.
when you have lack? How do we rewire our brain to create abundance when you have nothing and you don't know how to earn more money? The first thing I think you need to be aware of is that your beliefs dictate your behaviors. So if you believe that money is bad, or people who make a lot of money are bad and take advantage of others, and therefore me having lack right now means I'm a good person and I don't want to become a bad person, then that belief is going to dictate your behaviors and you're going to stay in lack. You're going to stay in scarcity and you're going to see opportunities that only give you just enough, as opposed to opportunities that could create incredible wealth for yourself financially, but also an emotional wealth that you've never had before. So that's one of the things you want to understand is first that your beliefs dictate your behaviors.
That's a big one, by the way. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
Like that, I just want to point that out for people. Like that's so
True.
huge.
Because your belief,
Yeah, it's huge.
Your belief got you to a place of, I am impacting hundreds of millions of people from these videos that I created with my talents, but I don't know how to make money with them. And I don't know if I actually should, because then I could be bad and wrong, or people could perceive me as I did something bad
Yeah.
to make this money.
Correct.
And I'm a spiritual person. I'm a monk. I've done all these things. I don't want to have that life.
Yeah.
But I want to make an impact and I don't want to be poor.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people are struggling with that mindset.
What are the other ones you hear? What are the other, focusing on that belief
Yes.
spirit, what are you hearing from people about their belief? That's my belief.
Yep.
And that's very much my history and story, as you said. What other stuff do you hear from people?
The biggest shift that will create abundance in your life is a mindset habit in unlocking wealth for yourself. And one of the big lies, or one of the big blocks that holds people back from financial opportunity, is that I cannot be generous with my time, my wisdom, my knowledge, or my secrets to others, because if I am, they will take it and run with it, and I will be left with nothing. So therefore, I'm going to hoard my energy, I'm going to hoard my time, my knowledge, and only keep it to me so that others don't have good ideas or have my help. And from all the different billionaires and millionaires and financial leaders in the world that I've interviewed, I know you've interviewed a lot of them, there is a question I would always ask individuals who've made incredible amounts of money, and that keeps helping them create more wealth year after year. And they all say the same thing. Those who have had a sustainably good heart in the process is that you have to have a generous mindset. So the mindset habit is the first thing that you have to think about when creating abundance with your money, but also feeling abundant internally. And it's coming with generosity. So if you feel like you're stuck right now, if you feel like you have nothing, this was what you were at 8 years ago when I met you. This was where I was at 15 years ago when I was on my sister's couch. I had no money. I was in student loan debt, was sleeping on her couch. I didn't think I had any skills. I didn't have a college degree yet. I was like, how am I going to make money if I don't know how to make money and I don't have any talent or skill and I'm in debt? It didn't understand it. It felt impossible. And the thing that I shifted when I started meeting money mentors is I needed to learn the first habit, which is the mindset habit, which is a habit of generosity and gratitude.
So what did that look like then? What was the practical step?
What it looks like was, how do I meet money people who have money, people who have success, people who can teach me knowledge? I needed to come with a sense of energy, of curiosity, of possibilities, and of joy. I literally wrote a list down of all these different things that I thought were my talents. I go, how can I make money? I don't have any skills. I played football and now I'm injured. What can I do for people? But I was like, well, I'm really curious. Maybe I can just ask people questions. And never did I think in a million years that I could have a 12-year-old podcast just asking questions and make millions of dollars a year. I never thought that was possible. I was in my early 20s and I was like, you know what? I've got a lot of energy. I've got a lot of passion. So let me bring passion and energy to other people and excitement. And that energy was infectious. And there's a currency that's tied to that energy of passion, joy, excitement, curiosity. That currency may not look like money, but for those who are older, who have no more passion, they're burnt out, they're exhausted, it is the highest form of currency. They want that. They crave that energy. They've burnt themselves out for decades. They want to feel young again. They want to feel curious again. They want to feel excited again. And when you come to someone with that energy, you are bringing a different mindset. So the mindset of curiosity, joy, passion, presence, like just connecting with someone and asking them a question is such a valuable currency. So we have to look into these untapped skills, talents, currencies inside of us that are hidden to others, but inside of us, they can create magic.
Yeah.
That's one of them. Another one is just being generous with your time, with your resources, with your ideas, and helping others succeed.
I love that because I didn't even know that then, but I was doing it unconsciously.
Yes, you were.
So I really wanted to interview incredible people, but I didn't have a platform at the time when I met you. And so I'd partnered up with NASDAQ. Mm-hmm. And by the way, just to be really clear with everyone, I didn't get paid to do this.
Yes.
So NASDAQ had something where everyone was using Facebook Live. And I said, hey, could I have an hour in the NASDAQ building whenever I have an amazing guest that says yes, so that I can interview them on NASDAQ Live, and they would put the picture up on the middle of Times Square.
On a billboard.
So now I could reach out to people I looked up to.
And that's the reason why I went on the show.
Exactly.
So I didn't know who you were until I saw, hey, I can get you on a billboard on Times Square. I go, that's value to me right now.
I'm being generous and I'm trying to find a way because I don't have anything to offer.
Nothing to offer.
But I admire you. And it was all people I admired. It was yourself. It was Ryan Holiday said yes. Me and Ryan had met maybe once before that, but Ryan came on that show. And there were a bunch of other authors. Deepak Chopra came on that show with me. And it was all people that I'd admired, looked up to for a long time. And exactly that. That's how, first of all, we became great friends off of it. But the point is, it's exactly what you're saying, that even though I felt I had nothing to offer, I had to find a way to create something to offer someone of value. I didn't get paid for it, for that show. I didn't get paid to run it. I didn't make any money from it. But it created an opportunity for me to connect with friends, to connect with people that were doing incredible things.
Yes.
And of course, allowed me to showcase my talents so that then I could show it to other people. I remember I had Ryan Harwood on the show, who founded PureWow, and he just sold it to Gary Vee.
Yep.
And that's how I met Gary. So Ryan came on my show and he was just like, Jay, I love you. You're a great interviewer. Like, you have such great energy. He really liked my passion. And he said, you got to come meet Gary. And I was like, no way. Like, I love Gary. And so he took me to meet Gary for the first time. We had a meeting in his office. And that's how I built my relationship with him. It was all thanks to Ryan. And so when you think about it now, like when I've never thought about it until what you're saying.
Yes.
Now when I look back, Ryan's been on the podcast like 4 times now, whatever. I love his books. So many relationships came out of that. And so I think when you live in a world of I have nothing to offer and I don't have anything, it becomes really hard to create.
And most people think when I have nothing, I need to take from someone else.
Yes.
I don't have anything, so I can't give anything if I don't have it. So I need someone to give me money right now because I'm broke, I'm poor, I'm stuck, I'm stressed, I'm anxious. I can't think out of myself. And this first habit is really gratitude and generosity is the gateway to abundance. And it may not mean you're going to make money right away.
Yes.
You didn't make money by having me on the show right away, but we became friends. I helped you, you helped me. Over time, we helped each other create more abundance together, not only financially, which we've done together, but a type of richness that isn't about money. And this book, again, it's a money book, but it's really like, it doesn't matter how much money you have if you don't feel like you have a rich life inside of you.
That's real.
It does not matter how much is in your bank account, how big your net worth is. If you don't feel like you have an abundant life, if you're stressed, if you're overwhelmed, if you're anxious, if you're constantly in drama, that is not abundance. A high net worth does not mean you are free. And the goal is for us to feel free every moment of our lives as often as possible and allow money to be a tool to create incredible opportunities, memories, moments where you can be generous with it, with the people you care about, the causes you care about, the institutions you care about, to serve more people and feel good about doing it, not feel bad about doing it. And that's part of this process. Most people, when they lack money, they want to take from others. They want someone to help them. And you need to flip it on its head and say, how can I help others? Even when I have nothing, that is the time to be more generous and in more gratitude and say, thank you for this opportunity. Even if you have to just lie to yourself for a moment and say, I'm stuck, I'm on my sister's couch, I have no money, I'm 4 months, in 4 months, I'm going to be out of an apartment and I don't know where the money's coming. Just say, thank you, God, thank you, universe, for this opportunity to learn, this opportunity to grow, because I'll never be here again. I don't know if you've had Ken Honda on, but he wrote—
I know Happy Money, but I haven't had him on.
Dude, he's so cool. I love this approach to this. And he's talking similar style about how do you just live a rich life, irrelevant of whether you have money or not. And again, this is what I want people to get to. When you are poor, when you're broke, when you're struggling financially, it feels really hard to feel abundant and rich. And we want to start shifting our thoughts, our emotions, and our energy on, okay, I know I'm in this financial situation. It doesn't feel good, but in order to get out of it, it's not feeling worse about it. It's starting to feel better about me, better about my values, my character, my kindness, my generosity, and seeing how can I add value to others. And that's the first thing we need to be thinking about. How can I get into a richness inside of me to serve others and take care of me at the same time? And one of the practices or these social experiments or exercises similar to you that Ken has is that whenever money comes to him, whether it's a check, whether it's a Venmo payment, whatever it might be, he just says thank you to that money. He looks at that number. If it's a penny, if it's $1 million, if it's your normal check you get coming in the mail every 2 weeks, he looks at it and says thank you, and literally opens his heart and loves that money that comes to him. He says, thank you. Where do you want to go? Do you want to go to my bank account? Do you want to go to my savings? Do you want to go to investments? Do you want to go towards paying off debt? Do you want me to give you away? And it might be a weird kind of like,
no, I like it,
exercise, but I love this approach to just being mindful of money when it comes. Say thank you. And then when you pay bills, when you pay off debt, say thank you as well. Thank you for allowing me to pay off this debt. Thank you for paying my cell phone bill so I can call my friends and family that I love. Thank you for the ability to live a richer life.
Yeah.
And when we start to approach money in that way, it doesn't mean money's going to fall from the sky and come to us abundantly. But we're going to start to feel more rich and abundant internally, which that energy is what will attract more opportunities. Those opportunities could lead to millions. This hostess that came to you, she brought that thankful energy, that present energy, that loving, joyful, curious energy, and it created an abundance of opportunities and connection.
Next up is Jaspreet Singh, who talks about the wealth formula. Now, this was one of our most popular episodes, and I'm so excited for you to learn from him. He talks about the difference between building wealth involving both saving and investing. It's not an either or. He also talks about understanding the formula. Income minus expenses equals investments plus savings. And investments are the key to maintaining wealth even after making millions. If you're someone who's been wanting to learn more about investing, this clip is for you.
What are you doing with your income? You can either build the equity by starting a company yourself or by building a home, or you can buy the equity. Now, how do you do that? Well, you have to understand the wealth formula. The wealth formula that I've come up with is you take your income minus your expenses, and that equals your investments plus your savings. So if you take your income, the amount of money that you make, and now you subtract all the things that you buy, your rent, your mortgage, your car payment, your groceries, your gas, you take away all of your expenses. And if you have a margin, well, now you have extra cash. Now you can save all or some of this money, but if you don't save some of it, then that money can be put to work in your investments. These investments, like I've been hinting at, is what makes wealthy people wealthy, and it's what keep wealthy people wealthy. These investments can be in the stock market, because anytime you buy a share of any company, if you go out and buy a share of, say, Amazon, you become one of the owners of the Amazon Corporation. You get to share in the profits. If the Amazon valuation goes up, your stock price goes up. The second way would be through real estate, not through your home, but through a real estate investment, buying a rental property that you're buying for the sole purpose of making money. This is something that can pay you every week or every year, every month. Then it can be through your own business, or if you don't want to build your own business, you can invest in startups. It's much more accessible now. You can own physical gold. You can invest in cryptocurrency if that's something that you believe in. So there's a lot of different ways to build this equity, but this is where now you need to be putting your money to work to actually buy and own and build this equity.
Yeah, those are, first of all, I just want to say I love how structured your thinking is, and it's so great to break things down. And so anyone who's been listening or watching so far, make sure you go back and ask yourself which of those habits you're struggling with. Are you someone who's in the 2 S's, choosing to either spend or save? Are you someone who's being slowed down by systemic thinking and like being controlled about where that goes? Like really take a moment to reflect in this episode while you're listening, which part you want to work on, because I know right now some of you may be tempted to just turn this off and go, I'm overwhelmed. I don't want to hear about this. I'm scared about my money already. I don't want to talk about it. But I'm hoping that this is creating space for you to really sit down, introspect, and reflect. Going into that, I think one of the biggest issues that people have when they hear this, and I know that I had a long time ago when I first heard this, was I don't have enough to do anything with. And so I remember when I started hearing about crypto specifically, like very early on, like I probably heard about it like maybe like 13 years ago, probably the first time. Yeah, I was very early heard about cryptocurrencies about 12, 13 years ago. And I had just come out of the monastery, so I didn't have any money. Like I didn't have anything to invest. And probably in about a year, I probably would have had like 1,000 to invest. In my head, I go, that's not anything. What's that going to do? Yeah. Right? And I think a lot of people have that mindset where they're like, I only have $500. I only have $1,000. Like, what can I do with that? I might as well spend it on whatever it is or I'm going to save it because I need it for a rainy day. What does someone do when they have that mindset, when they're like, I don't have enough? How do you approach that?
So when I was in high school, I really wanted a Ford Mustang, but my dad was like, no, we can't buy a Ford Mustang. I wasn't going to get that car. But this is, again, when stock prices had crashed. And the next best thing, if I couldn't buy a Ford Mustang, and I started reading the business books then, was how about I buy some of the Ford stock? Again, I didn't have a lot of money. My first investment in the Ford stock was $2 because that's how much the stock was trading for. Now it's much higher. But what I'm trying to get at is, you can start with a very little amount of money. I mean, nowadays with the new age of stock brokerages, if you have $10, you can start buying this type of equity. You can start building this type of equity. But the key now is the consistency and how often, like doing it all the time. Because when I say consistency, people say, oh, anytime I have $100. Well, okay, what you want to do by consistency is make it automatic. Anytime you get paid, take a portion of that money and automatically invest it. Now, the next question is probably, where do I put this money? Do I just throw it into Tesla or Amazon? Well, if you're not willing to do that level of research, where you don't want to try to find the best companies, you don't want to invest in real estate, you don't want to get into the more, let's say the more advanced type of stuff. You want to just put your money to work. Well, the simplest thing you can do is look at something called an ETF, which is an exchange traded fund, which gives you exposure not to one company, but many companies, maybe hundreds of companies. For example, there's something called the S&P 500, which is a group of the 500 biggest companies on the stock market, essentially the 500 biggest companies in America. You can invest in the S&P 500 by investing in just one symbol. So you invest in this one thing and you're getting exposure to 500 different companies. Now you don't have to worry about what each of these 500 companies are doing. You're just investing essentially in America, the future of the American economy. If that's something you believe in, well, now every time you get paid, put in $100. And now you just do this for the long term, whether the market is up or down, does not matter. It should not change your strategy. You just keep passively investing your money, make it automatic, make it passive. That way you don't have to even worry about it. And now you just keep building it up, because now it's the whole idea of compounding. You don't want to just throw your money in at once. You want to put a little bit of money and let that grow, put more money and let that grow, put more money and let that grow. I made a couple of videos where I talked about two people. One was a janitor, one worked in a school. Both of them made very little income, yet both of them retired very wealthy. And the reason, and I'm talking about in the millions of dollars, and the reason why they've been able to retire with $1 million plus was because they took a little bit of money every time they got paid and they just invested that money. It did not matter, what else was going on in the world. They always paid themselves first. They always invested in assets before they started going out and buying things that made them look rich. Every single time. And when you put that little bit of money to work, whether you're starting with $25 or $250 or $1,000, when you put that money to work and you do that consistently over time, you can build real wealth. I mean, if you look at a compound calculator, a few $100s a month compounded from the age of 21 to 65, getting an average rate of return. I mean, we're talking about millions, but it just starts with making that small investment first and being consistent with it and always being willing to learn.
I love that. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think the other option, so as I was saying there, is the issue is I don't have enough, it's not going to matter, right? Like that's one mindset. The other mindset is, and it's almost the opposite, it's the idea of like, but I want to make money quick.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like it's like, oh no, but I want it now. And I think there's this mindset, especially what you keep saying about how the lifestyle has been portrayed, that we almost feel like people just change their lives overnight and that they all of a sudden have like a portfolio of rental properties, or they all of a sudden have the nice house or the nice car or whatever it may be. And all of a sudden we're wondering, well, how does it happen that quick for me? And then we get stuck in a get rich quick scheme, or we get stuck in like some quick win. It sounds like to me that one of the biggest trainings is in the discipline of being able to postpone pleasure. Yeah. Because what you're saying in any market is it's going to take time. Like you had to save up $4,000 to $8,000 for your first condo that you bought. Yeah. First of all, you had to work for that money. You had to save that money so that you could invest it. Then you were able to buy this $8,000 condo, which obviously has had great, growth, I'm sure. But there was a lot that took to get to that. Whereas I think right now people are like, oh, well, I'd rather spend $100 on this, right?
It's a real decade of sacrifice. And there's really no way around it if you want to fast track your way. Now, the best investment you can make if you want the better returns, the bigger returns, is by investing your money in yourself. And the tough part is you got to be willing to go through that time and the effort, because you're right, it takes time. Unless you have that experience already there, you have the mentors, you have, parents, people who can guide you through it, maybe you can shorten it, but I didn't have that. So for me, it took me a solid decade to figure it out, to go from business idea to business idea to business idea, to go through failure over failure, to get scammed after scam. Those things are what teach you. And when you're going through it, it sucks. You don't realize that you're going through a lesson. You just feel like, dang, I just got screwed over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True.
But it's you got to keep the goal, in mind. And it's understanding what is more important to you right now. Because you're right. The last thing that you want to do also is get into this idea of just pinching pennies, because at the end of the day, a penny saved is just a penny. And the thing that I can best do to illustrate that is if you make $40,000 a year and you're like, okay, I'm going to put aside a quarter of my income. I'm going to put aside $10,000 to save and invest. And then you start putting your money to work and you're like, oh my God, I love this. I want to do more. I want to get better results. So now you're like, well, I'm going to try to put aside 30% of my income, 35% of my income. And you keep trying to squeeze this limited pie. But this is where now it's about building that growth mindset. And this is what wealthy people are able to do, where they say, okay, sure, I can try to squeeze more pennies out of the pie, but the other thing that I could do is I'm going to try to grow the pie. How do I go from $40,000 to $400,000? And you might hear that thinking, how in the world am I going to go from 40 to 400? Like it just sounds impossible and so far away. And at that point, yeah, it might seem the way, but the first step, like you said, it's that mindset. That's why I call minority mindset, because all success starts with your mindset. You have to be wealthy here before you can be wealthy in your bank account. And you have to understand how your mindset plays a part in it, because now if you tell yourself you can't do it, you can't.
Yeah.
But if you tell yourself you can, then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to say, how do I go from 40 to 50?
Yeah.
50 to 100. You're going to start watching YouTube videos. You're going to start putting in work. And as you start to make more money, now you're going to be able to answer that question of, what do I want to do with this money? Do I want to go out and buy a new Beamer?
Yeah.
Or do I want to go out and invest in my business? Do I want to go out and buy a rental property? Do I want to go out and invest in stocks? Do I want to go out and invest in a startup? And now you can make these decisions because you have that financial education. And this is why, anytime I talk about the hows of, things that I say you should do to become wealthy, I always talk about how you invest and grow your money last.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know how to save that money, if you don't know how to invest that money, earning more money doesn't do you any good until you know how to do that. Because now earning more money has the most impact, because now you know how to put that money to work. You have the system.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a quick example. Like the first time I made $1 million in a year, my car was worth $500 that I was driving. I still drive today that $500 car. Just last week, before I came out here to California, my homeowner association called me and they said, hey, Jaspreet, we have a number of complaints about a junk car sitting in your driveway. And this is a true story. They said it's been sitting there, because I was in California for a long time. They said it's been sitting there, and people say that you should take these junk cars and put them in storage. And I was like, well, for your information, it's not a junk car. That is my car that I take to and from work every single day. It doesn't have a bumper on it, but it works. And they were like, well, you have to put it higher or further in the driveway so people don't see it. And I was just like, oh my God, you don't get it. And it's not that I can't go out and buy another car. The way I look at it is, well, if I want to go out and buy a $150,000 car, which I can go out and take this cash and buy a car, or I can take this $150,000 and put it back either into real estate or into stocks or into my business, because that's something that I've been investing heavily in now.
I want to end this episode with a few key takeaways. Real wealth starts with strategic thinking and understanding passive income. It's not from luck or just hard work. Number 2, it's about building long-term financial security and prioritizing investments over instant gratification. And number 3, share this with someone who wants to build lasting wealth, because financial freedom is the foundation of true independence. And when you share these tips abundantly, you'll be surrounded by more people having positive, healthy money conversations. If you love this episode, you will also love my interview with Charles Duhigg on how to hack your brain, change any habit effortlessly, and the secret to making better decisions.
Look, am I hesitating on this because I'm scared of making the choice, because I'm scared of doing the work? Or am I sitting with this because it just doesn't feel right yet?